I just had a watercolor class here with some very enthusiastic watercolor students, and we're working on this incredible technique. This watercolor technique I've used with acrylic paint, but I'm finding that with watercolors it's really amazing because the shapes that you make are transparent, so it's almost sort of like stained glass when one gets put over the other one. So I'm going to show you what you need. So what I have here is a collection of stencils that I have cut out of cardstock with an X-Acto knife, and there are many different shapes of fish shapes and grass shapes, leaf shapes. I've been using these in acrylic painting, that's why they look the way they do, but now we're also using these for watercolor. And of course, the great thing about this is if you like this technique, you can definitely make your own stencils with the shapes and themes that you want. And then I have a collection of colored pencils. I probably have maybe 30 or 40 colored pencils. You can get a set of 12 or buy them singly if you want. These are Prismacolors, my favorite colored pencils. And then I also have a little pencil sharpener here that I've been using. Here I have some natural sponges, which you can get at any art supply store. They're small in shape and perfect for the sponging that we're going to be doing today. Then over here I have a container of water, and then of course my watercolors here and a brush for mixing colors if I need. And here I have a sheet of 140-pound cold pressed watercolor paper, and this is probably a little hard to see, but I have taped it off with this clean edge tape. Now you can use any masking type tape if you want to do this for the edge of your painting, which I recommend. It doesn't have to be this kind, but you can also use any kind of low tack tape for doing it. This technique is so really simple. I'm just going to take some shapes. I will start with this leaf shape. I take a sponge, wet it a little bit, and then go into a color. In this case, I'm choosing a red watercolor. And just put the color on like that. And then I think I'm going to continue using this stencil. Mix a little orange with the red for color variation. And I'm not really thinking very much about the placement right now, only because these forms are going to overlap. So even if I think about where I'm going to be placing it, it's probably going to be covered up. So now I'm going to try a different shape. Wetting the sponge again, taking the color out, wringing the sponge out. I don't want a lot of water on it. And then I'm thinking of going into a red, so I'm mixing up kind of a reddish purple, and I'm just going to put this shape right here. And maybe I'll add a little blue to that and go in over here. if you add too much water to your sponge, the shapes will blur. So you want to keep the sponge fairly not quite so wet. I think I'm going to add another shape and a different color. So this time it's yellow. I'll put that there. And you can see that by sponging in the shapes this way, with a stencil, that the watercolor is fairly transparent, so that if you put one color over the other, you will get a really nice mixture of colors and sort of let the water do that blending. I'm just bringing in another shape here. I tell my students that probably use 4 or 5 different shapes. That's probably going to work just fine. They don't have to all be leaf shapes. They can be whatever you want. In this case, I'm choosing all the leaf shapes just to kind of set the motif. Well, I think I'm just about done with putting the shapes in, and you can see how these colors are overlapping to make new shapes. So it's almost like stained glass in a way that when you put one shape down over another shape, that the transparency allows the color to come through. So now I'm going to dry this. And I want to make sure that this painting is dry, because the next thing I'm going to do is draw with colored pencil on it. So, I've got my hair dryer here. The painting is nice and dry, so I'm going to choose a dark color to use for the shading to make these forms pop. I've chosen a sienna brown, which I think will work well. And then I'm just going to have to make decisions as to where I want the shading to be. So I think I'm going to start here. And fill in this area here, making sure that the colored pencil goes on nice and solid and thick. I found that putting these shapes in is just pretty much just a decision that you make as you do it. I might be filling the white spaces in, or maybe not. In this case, I'm filling a white space in. over here, I think I might make a new shape altogether by coloring out some of the shapes I've painted in. And then I can go into some of the leaf shapes and just make a suggestion of line to emphasize it. And I don't want to make an outline all the way around. I just want to put in a suggestion of the shape. So I'm making some decisions here as far as where I want the shadows. And as you work on your painting, I've found that these shapes just kind of come to you. You know, what kind of light and shadow do you want? And of course, these dark shapes can emphasize the shapes of the leaves or whatever shape you want. And I find that with this project, the more that students do this exercise, the better they get at making the shapes that create the light and the shadow and pop the painted shapes out. It's really a lot of fun to make decisions as to what to fill in and what to leave. And it teaches students how to define shapes, not just by making the shape, but making the shape around the shape. That's called a figure-ground relationship, and it's really important in painting, drawing, printmaking. So now all I have to do is remove the tape. If I were to mat this, I'd just put the mat within maybe 1/8 of an inch from this edge. And it would look very nice. Really nice. These always turn out very, very well. All you need is watercolors. You can buy stencils or make them yourself. A couple colored pencils. Some nice low-tack tape to make a nice edge and map out your environment. I've taught this to children, adults, elders. It's a very rewarding project, and it really teaches a lot about how to see.